well, so that'll be good.
Nice.
Michael, good to have you on. It was my mistake. We lined this up, and last time we spoke, we were like we were just saying then, just we hit it off, and I was really excited by everything you're doing with Falcons AI and what you're doing with your co-founder and team, and um, yeah, Sam gave us a kind introduction. And tell me, I guess, kick it off. Like, this is a question I'm just curious about with everyone at the moment.
All right.
Separate to Falcon AI, which I'll get into, and like you were just mentioning there, and with Hugging Face being like one of the most downloaded apps, and you got
Yep.
over.
Number one
Uh,
most downloaded model on Hugging Face as of today.
that's fucking cool.
Yeah.
But how are you seeing like everything that's happening at the moment across the world? Like big things are happening with not to focus on the trade deals and stuff, but things with AI and technology and people really pushing incentives and initiatives. What's your kind of general view on AI and this whole it's an exciting time, right? So I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
absolutely.
What do you think?
Absolutely. No, so I mean there's huge pushes in, generative, right? And there's a market for that, obviously. But what honestly concerns me is when you start talking about things like path dependence. And I've spoke to this before. Jan LeCun, the chief AI researcher or leader at Meta, he even talks about this. Like, LLMs are not the pathway to AGI, right? And so, going back to my statement previously about path dependence, so are you aware? And here's like a little analogy that I always use to kind of just get it out in the open. Are you aware that the size of the space shuttle booster rockets are determined by this width of the Roman wagon wheel?
I wasn't aware of that, but it's
I mean, think about
yeah,
that. How,
totally good.
like mind, that's insane. And so that's kind of what path dependence is. So
Well,
the
so
train
how
tracks,
big the one sec, Michael? How big the rocket ship is the same size as the wheel of a Roman
well, it
wagon
was
wheel.
determined by the width of the Roman wagon wheel. And so this is path
Right.
dependence, right? So the width of the Roman wagon wheel was used for determining the width of train tracks. And so when they had to ship the rockets, they had to go through tunnels. They put them on trains, and they couldn't be
Yeah.
bigger than the tunnels. So they had to shrink them down to
Crazy.
fit the tunnels. And
Right.
so, I guess, sequentially, that's kind of the like the biggest analogy I have for, like, path dependence and how that impacts things in the future. And if you think
Yeah.
about that conceptually, a Roman wagon wheel determined the size of, space travel, something
Yeah.
dealing with space travel, right? And so that's my larger concern with AI and the nature of the herd mentality and just going because transformers are there and things like that is, are we succumbing to path dependence? Is there a better way? Did somebody not do certain research in a given area because the money and the research and the hype was all flowing towards, this one path? So those are
Yeah.
those are kind of, like my things. I'm excited. I'm glad that, AI has finally reached, you know, public domain the way it has. It's been in the background for some time and people talked about it. And, I was doing anomaly detection in manufacturing, way back in the early 20 teens, right? But, I think we have to be not cautious because AI is going to become our overlords, anything like that. More along the lines of what big pieces are we missing because everybody's focused on this one trajectory, right?
Yes.
So that's kind of are we trying to, shoehorn AI through this tunnel that was determined by this one thing that's no longer relevant today, right? You know what I'm saying?
It's a really good point. Yeah, it's kind of how I think about it. But it's very, I'm really locked onto that thinking now because how we take things from so ancient that are still so relevant today, and
Correct.
like all the mysteries we have. Like I was listening to something earlier, and it's like how we're closer to the death of Cleopatra than Cleopatra is to the building of the pyramids. Like that really
Right.
messes with me. It
Right.
really messes.
When you like, you put that in context, it's like, wow, I
Yeah,
didn't even. And so those are like my biggest concerns because so I guess I would say I'm an accelerationist, right? So I
yeah,
believe that, with the way that, humanity's just consuming everything and we have this, extractionist kind of
mm,
way we operate, I don't think
Yeah.
that's obviously sustainable. And so I feel like technology can provide better solutions. It has throughout time provided better and
Yeah.
better ways to do things. I just worry about we're applying it still with that extractionist mentality as opposed to,
Yeah.
more of what would be additive or like an accretionist or an accretional, gain over
Yes.
time type of
It's a
type
good
of
point.
thing.
Do you think we get it wrong? Like, or not wrong, but do you think it's, I don't know how to ask this question properly, but help me out here, because how we think about technology, right? And this kind of leans into what you might think about Falcon's AI and how models are being used today. And it comes up a lot in governance. And I mean, that area, it doesn't bore me, but I feel like it's like a problem that you're never gonna, that I personally can't ever solve. Like, it really messes with my head because I always think, like, how can you build, and it's not saying I'm not for it. I'm all for ethical and governance and good AI and all that stuff. Yeah, of course I am. But how to build these solutions with like forward thinking instead of just like a set like model. Like you can't, and this is what I was saying to Zara Shah. She's a brilliant person. How can you put frameworks around technology, and not just with governance? It's the first thing that's jumped to my mind. But like in
Right.
industries, or if you're working with a customer, or if the people that are downloading Falcons, like how they use it. Like it's very hard if you're just using like trying to put a circle in a square. Like it doesn't like it doesn't a circle it doesn't match. Like, and I feel like we kind of get our way into that with technology. I don't know if that makes sense to
Right.
you. Like how we
No,
think
it,
about
it
it.
does. And so I would look at it from a different perspective, as opposed
Yeah,
to like, so I'll give you a prime example. So we put out the V1 model, which, right now is number one on Hugging Face, most downloaded, over 100 million in the last 30 days, right? And
that's
what
awesome.
that model, it's singular focus model, right? It's a image classification model for NSFW content, right? And based on the rise of, and it was early, obviously, but based on the rise of and propagation of this type of content, throughout the internet, I was like, okay, there's something that we could do to get out in front of this. And then you start looking at, okay, well, what about generative AI? Well, that model solves that singular issue right there, right? And as proof of point, Black Forest Labs, they developed the Flux model, the famous Flux model. So Falcon's AI's NSFW model is literally in the Black Forest Labs documentation. So if you go to GitHub, so they actually use our model to kind of mitigate the output. So as opposed to trying to wrap legislation and regulation around innovation, I feel like wouldn't it be a better approach? And this is kind of, once again, getting into, philosophical things like that, using technology to manage technology, right? And so that's kind of, if you look at it just in that sense of the NSFW classification model. Gen AI is great, but oh my God, it's going to generate all this other stuff. Well, we have a model for that. We use technology to mitigate that. We don't try to, wrap our brains around um, how to kind of get out in front of this, right? So
Right.
there's a theory. I'm drawing a blank right now, and it's basically the theory of states, right? So in order to control a certain thing, you have to know the control system has to have the number of states, has to have as many or if not more states than that thing. So to boil it down, a light switch, right, is a control system for the light, right? The light has two states, off and on. And so the light switch has two states to be able to control it. The reason why what you're saying is correct, like you're having trouble wrapping your head around it, and many people are, and nobody has the single answer, right? It's
Yeah.
because when you start looking at probabilities with regards to image and language generation and, evolutionary nature of these models, and when I say evolutionary, like speciation, like fine tuning generates a different version of the parent version, things like that.
Yeah.
So we cannot conceptualize. There's literally not enough brain power to conceptualize all of the possible states of what these systems, solutions, models, plug in your um, concept or framework there. We can't conceptualize that. So for me, it's so why don't we build things that can?
Mm.
Right? And I know once again you start getting into the realm of escalation things like that, and nefarious and bad actors, and whatever. But it's to me, we've finally hit a dangerous, I'll say, or unnerving place in human history that we've never, ever, ever, ever had to account for before. And we,
Yeah.
as modern society, are literally in competition right now with another entity for power. And that's, literal physical energy and water to cool the data centers. And land to house these data centers. So we're in competition as human beings right now with an entity for land, for water, and for power. We've never faced this frontier before.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we have to build solutions that, can start factoring as many variables or as many states as these systems that we're building.
Yeah, like I was just looking at them. So, like in control theory, the theory of states refers to the concept of using state variables to describe the internal conditions of a dynamical system, allowing for prediction and control of its future behavior. And it's also linked to linear control theory, state space representation.
Yes.
Linear algebra has got a kind of knock-on effect, and it kind of it's a. I don't know if you're going to expand on it more, but I'm liking this because it makes me think like all the decisions we can now make. Like I feel like it's like when someone says, "I've tried everything." It's like, have you tried everything?
No,
probably
right?
not.
Right. Yeah.
It really makes me think. And I catch myself doing it. And it's like when someone says, "I don't have the time." It's like I have the same time as anyone else. I've just chosen to use my time doing something else.
Absolutely.
It's not that I don't have it. Like I'm on the same. No one's like 5 hours behind me, like in theory on a time zone they are, but they're not in a different dimension or something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So these are the kind of things that, I kind of look at as, where are we? Why are we here? And is our current path a divergent path? And are we missing out on a better path because the AI hype cycle saying, oh, this is the way forward and all the money's going there, right? As opposed to, distribution. So I read, there was I think it was Scientific American article a couple of years ago, and it was talking about the greatest weapon that humanity wielded was collaboration.
Gotcha.
And I feel like we're in that space right now where you're starting to see, fractions within or fractionation within, these different research communities, technological communities, things like that. And I think that's going to run counter to where we need to be to actually truly capitalize on the possible value of what this technology can really do.
Yeah, it's got a lot of different angles of what to do and how we're going to use it, and I feel like there's just so many questions and debates on
Absolutely
what we will use the technology for or how we use the technology. And there's a lot of failed AI startups as well that aren't like just like there was in the internet era. And I think it's interesting because are they a failure? Maybe they're just too early for like their use cases and their adoptions. And I don't know, like that is a thing that I reckon some of these startups will have their golden era moment in 10 years if we're still running around in 10 years. Maybe AI will take over.
Right, but then there's the other side of that, right? So it's the network effect, right? So
yeah.
Is your startup really successful because you have a successful network who has invested money? So I don't know what the number is, but there's like a disproportionate number of unicorn startups right now that are still not profitable, right?
Yeah.
Just because people pumped money into it. And so, I'm not one to say that, a company's valuation should be X, Y, or Z. I don't really get into that. I don't know the mechanics or the, internal operations of that organization or those organizations.
Yeah,
I'm more of a utility, right? What is the utility of the service they provide? What is the value at that level? And then scale that out. And that's what the actual value, should or could be, not what the market says or what a couple of, network effect friends say. And if you look at, the failures of a couple of weeks ago or, ongoing, and it's happening every day, oh, this great startup, blah, 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 and they had this valuation and now they're shuttering their doors, right?
Yeah.
So was it really a great startup and were they really, deserving of the valuation that they got? And the answer was no. The market said no.
Yeah.
Contrary
And I
to what
think
the
there's a lot.
investors say.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, I'm trying to understand that VC world and area, how investors think and everything. And my personal opinion is I don't really understand it because I'm a product person. Well, I guess I'm more of a business relationship person. I'm very good at connecting people. But in that world, it does make me think like Amazon was a key example, and they said that was going to fail. And he said to the like, his book's really good as well, like written by Walter Isaacson, or the foreword's written by Walter Isaacson. It's basically just a breakdown of memos, and it's a very easy book to read. And
Nice.
that's the first example that comes to my head where people are saying, where the investors are saying it's a failing business, kick Jeff out, all these things. And he's like, you're looking at the wrong numbers. He's like, if you look at our user base, it's growing exponentially. He's like, our revenue's
Right.
growing exponentially. And
Right.
you're looking at the wrong. And I think to your point, Michael, I'm not taking words out of your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong, but like my view on it is evaluation. I really don't care about. Like, I really care about who's using it and what value are they getting out of it, and can I see them. Like when I worked in engineering, very briefly as a marketing person, not as an engineer, but marketing, I always saw like the value. Like you can see it. Like it's like I
Yeah.
can see what it does.
Yes.
It's like if I can see that with software and I can see people using it, I really, and maybe that's why I wouldn't make a very good investor at the moment. I wouldn't see value. I'd be like, what are you talking about? Like people are using that platform and it's doing things. That's a
Correct.
green flag.
Correct. And obviously, I'll be 100% honest. I'm biased.
Yeah.
Because I look at our numbers, right? Our model has 100 million downloads in the last 30 days. What does that tell you, right? We're not valued at $100 million, but what does that tell you? The market likes that product.
Being used a lot. Yeah.
Right. And so, that's kind of the disconnect between, I think where the money actually could go to provide a legitimate impact versus what other people say where it can go and how, and I'm not a finance guy and I'm not even going to pretend to, even remotely understand the investment space. I'm more of a logic. I try to be as logical as we humans can be, right?
Well, it's good.
Functional.
It's good. It's good to realize those kind of things. Like Dana White's an example. He was just like, I hated finance. I like putting on the shows. I like putting the product, and he's built one of the most successful businesses in the UFC.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he explained in podcasts. I think he did one with Fear Von, and it's just, or someone else, and he was just saying like he'd have to go to finance meetings, and he was just like bored out of his mind, like looking at spreadsheets. And it's like me. I misspent the money in AIJOURNAL, and that's why I brought people in like Steve, because I'm just terrible with it. But you get people that are good at that stuff, and they love it. Like they can teach you. Like this is how to think about your framework. So I'm not. I just really resonate with that because I'm not a finance guy, but I know how to make things work, like marketing.
Yes.
And I guess it's similar with you. You know how to make things work in like downloads, which I'm really intrigued about. Like how you did that and what it was like seeing the numbers just after over day 1, day 2, day 3. Like whoa.
Well, so it's honestly it's my connection to the developer community. So in Dubai specifically, there's some really good developer communities, and two of the best are like Decoding Data Science and Coders HQ. It's really ground level practitioner, trying, testing, tinkering, learning, getting educated, sharing the knowledge communities that kind of, facilitated that. And then, the more developers you have using it, contrary to what, the corporate narrative may be, developers run the world. CEOs don't.
Yeah.
Because I promise you right now, you can have an epic product failure and cause a lot of harm and get a CEO fired.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's like legitimate. You can get somebody ousted or criminal charges, things like that. And so for me, it's who's using it, who's integrating it. Those are the people that, I resonate with, the people that can actually implement it in the places where, these things could and should be implemented. Should is obviously a nuanced term, but so, just community involvement, right? Constant, giving stuff away, open source. I love the open source community. It's kind of, what the world is built on. And I know, there are different legal situations going on right now around, things like Java and JavaScript and things like that. But, we're in the world that we're in today, fortunately, from the open source community. Transformers. right? Google Transformers. Google developed the Transformer model, and kabam, we're in the state of AI that we're in right now. And you have to look at how limited would we be if, getting back to my previous statement about collaboration, right? If we did not have the open source community of developers, of practitioners building these things for, product people to go out and sell. And so there's and that's kind of how I saw it. And I feel like it started taking off really in January. And my opinion, I haven't, dug in, but my opinion is because of everybody wanting to start the new year, deploying more and more AI solutions, more and more Gen AI solutions, they took a step back. It was like, okay, well, we can't just deploy this stuff all rando. We kind of need some sort of, I guess, what we term fabric layer controls. Not necessarily the model itself, but things to, mitigate the issues that model may generate. And so that kind of coincides with what I was saying earlier about using technology to get a hold of all of these different states of this technology that we cannot, as human beings, fit in our brain.
Yeah, you can't think about it, and to have these computers that are doing things. I saw Carrington Malin. He wrote something about Falcon's AI, which was quite cool, about hitting 100 million monthly downloads. And you've got, what, 300 million now in total, is it?
Yeah, it's over 325 today. 325 total, million total downloads. And once again, I think that speaks for, the quality of the model that we produced and open sourced it and gave it away, for people to use on, the myriad of use cases that they are, from small e-commerce platforms. And people don't think about things like this, but I was recently discussing with one of the developers actually in one of the communities. He worked for a small e-commerce company. And he said, you'd be surprised at the type of content when people, we allow people to upload product images to things they try to get away with. Yeah. And so that was a use case that I didn't even think about, right?
Yeah.
You think about it in terms of like social media and, internet searching, but you don't think about, well, there are legitimate businesses that rely on, user image uploads for, their business. And, maybe they kind of want to get out in front of this before, somebody uploads an inappropriate image and the platform gets sued or, loses customers or whatever. And that, has a disproportionate effect the smaller the business you are, obviously, right?
Yeah, you get some big knock-on effects, like if you're getting caught in those situations. Like that example, have you got, what's like I don't know, obviously not to, or have you got any examples of like what surprised you of how, when your model's in use, like what kind of things it's used for, or like that e-commerce situation? Because I was speaking to someone, so last week I was in London, and Carl, who's co-founder of Field AI, he was just making me think through like situations you just don't come across, like in facilities management or oil and engineering, or like your situation with e-commerce, that I think a lot of vendors and a lot of people, like a lot of my friends that work in those sectors, like in automotive or in their doctors or they're in insurance, and they just look at, like, it's very hard, it's very easy to just get embedded in the way vendors see it. And I don't know, like running those models, you must see some things and thinking like, this is going on more than people expect or something like that.
Well, I'll tell you, so the origin of why we developed that model was we were at our youngest son's birthday parties. One of his friends had a birthday party, and we were talking to some of our friends, great people, and they were talking about, the problems with certain content on these platforms like Roblox and Minecraft and things like that, that are targeted at children. And I was like, oh, that's insane. And so that's kind of, when I started working on the model, and then got with Nizam, and we built it out, and we deployed it, for people to review. So one of the biggest, I think, use cases for me that would actually mattered, that was actually like, wow, I didn't even think about that, but yes, that's a brilliant use case, was a small gaming platform embedded it into their chat to catch things like that, right? So they don't flag every image, right? But every image that comes through in their, in their gaming chat gets scanned. And if, inappropriate, then they know whether they need to contact the authorities or, how it plays out. So that to me was one of I didn't even think about, people send, explicit content in chat, in games. And so, it's just little things like that that I feel like that's a perfect representation of using technology to capture what other technology is doing and make it, easier, safer, better, whatever, terminology you want to use, positive terminology that you want to use to kind of, classify the leveraging of technology to wrangle other tech, right?
Yeah.
Because it is open source, we don't actually see, any of the content coming through. Thank God, for the downloads as well as, not having to see that. That was one of the toughest parts, obviously, because we didn't outsource any of the data curation. It was literally me. What that taught me was the value of having someone that understood how models work to go through this type of data, as opposed to, let's be honest, loading up a video, chopping it up into a bunch of different frames and using that as training data, right? You start, ingesting low quality data, which has, over a certain critical, threshold, has impact on how the model, classifies or whatever. So, just things like that.
How do you, when you start these kind of models, just touching on it there, when you were starting out, beginning of 2021, 2022? It must have been around that time.
2022, January.
Yeah. How did you like put the frameworks in place to create this model? Obviously, releasing it and all that came later, and the ideas. But how, I get, not just for Falcons, but how do people, like developers, you mentioned the open source community, how do you go out building a model? Because I think it's going to be something that people start doing much more regularly. Like, I know vibe coding is taking off at the moment, and
Yeah.
I'm not comparing the two to say they're as easy as each other. I
Right.
think
No,
building
no,
a
no,
model
no, no.
is very sophisticated. But like,
So
how was it? What did that process look like?
So basically, it's scaffolding, right? So you say, okay, I'll use a CNN, convolutional neural network, or I'll use a vision transformer, or one of these scaffolding that have proven successful previously, and then
Mm,
you kind of tweak it and modify it, and prune it, or however you get it to the size and the precision that and accuracy that you're looking for. That's kind of where it all begins. You literally, I start with, every time I do this, I'll start with, the basic scaffolding, and then, maybe a small data set, you know, 2,000, 4,000, 10,000 records to try to see, what certain impacts of certain features and adjustments have. And then
yeah.
I go from there. And then once I get, smaller data sets, then I start, increasing the size, which obviously increases the training time, and then go back and tweak this and run that and then do your comparison. So it's kind of like a build up. Like there's
Yeah.
not, I built this model and it's perfect and now I can train it and it's good to go. It's really, an iterative process to get, to a level of acceptability that you want it to deploy that's actually going to be of value. Other than
Yeah.
that, it's just flipping a coin. And that's another thing that I think people don't understand.
You make it
It
sound
is.
so simple. Like, yeah, I'm gonna
It,
build it all that, testing it, just flip the coin and see. Very
well, I
humble of that.
mean, it's obviously me and Nizam have a lot of conversations. He's our chief AI engineer. Me and him have a lot of conversations about what would happen if we did this, what would happen if we did that. And I think there's some really interesting concepts that we've been looking at, kind of, just definitely forward thinking with regards to, model architecture. We recently developed a new architecture. It's like ridiculously small footprint, super low power to run at edge. And we did a collaboration on this with Intel.
Nice.
Yeah, and they really liked it. And, we co-published an article about it recently, Nizam and Rahul from Intel on that. So that was another, way of like start from the basic scaffolding and see if we can make it smaller but keep the accuracy. Okay, now how can we make it lower power and keep the accuracy? Okay, so
Yeah.
what do we got to tweak and what do we got to add and move and layers and this that and the other. So and no, it's a very heady process, but we really like it. But
Yeah.
then you start getting into so many other things that when you start looking at the data and how these models are trained. And I recently wrote an article that got, some pushback or whatever on, with the problems that we're having today with regards to engagement on the social media platforms, and it's just, platforms in general. So there's what is it called? Algorithmic signal boosting, right?
Right.
So
I don't know what
you're
that
more
is. What's
likely
that?
to see stuff that outrages you or makes you sad, or
Right,
things
yeah, I know
like
that.
that, right?
Yeah.
Stupid humor, right? And I don't have anything against. We're all young. We all did stupid stuff, and it was funny at the time. But
Yeah.
the issue comes in now is when algorithms start signal boosting this stuff, and it gets more like and human feedback. This is the data that is being ingested into a lot of these models to train on. So if you look at path dependence, right, if the data from a social perspective is becoming less utility, like more emotional, more, rage and engagement driven, right? So you have a lot of these YouTube channels and things like that just basically their whole model is rage farming for likes and clicks.
That's a
And
really good point.
you know,
Like how
what impact is this having on the models in the future, right?
Yes. Yeah. Like how we learn stuff, like the
Correct.
topics we're sent, and like how, and I guess it would go into like the context of what you learn from a situation and how it can be very biased or very wrong or just
100%. 100%. And
so you
so,
can see like a place and think, oh, that's bad, when really it's not. Like it's like, that's a.
Well, it's all about perspective. And so this is when I get blowback about, the AI overlords and this, that, and the other, to me, AI is it's a knife, right? You can use it to cut your steak or cut your neighbor. It's who's using it for what purpose, right? It's all a matter of context and perspective. And so, when you start looking at what is the context of the information or data that's coming in and feeding these models, right? That's going to ultimately determine how those models grow and interact with humanity over time.
Yeah. And it's like you made a good point. It's like I forget who said it. It might have been this monk who's just recently gone on Chris Williamson's show and was saying like your point there about being a knife. It can cut you, but it also can chop up food. And it's like fire. It can burn you, or it can keep you warm. Water.
Correct.
You can drown it, and you can quench your thirst with it. It's like it's all these weird things. Like it's a really good point how you use it. And I think that's what people are stuck on at the moment, thinking
right.
Like,
and so getting back to your original question, right, about having trouble regulating it. No, you don't regulate technology and innovation. You regulate the people using it, right? That would be my take on it. But the problem then that introduces layers of problems, right? Okay, so what about companies that deploy these models and something bad happens? Well, make them criminally liable, literally criminally liable.
Yeah.
Right. Be responsible with your stuff because this stuff is, really impactful, and how it's used determine the impact. So, when you start forcing, like legitimate, not, oh, you made, $100 million, here's a $2 million fine. No, somebody's going to prison and your company's going to pay, half of its revenue over the past 2 years in a fine or something. I don't know. Just spitballing.
Yeah.
So you don't regulate the innovation, you regulate the utilization.
Yeah, that's a really good way, a decent framework for doing it. Like you see it with, and I don't really have a view on it at the moment. I don't know enough about these topics, but you see it happen. Like Meta's a key example. They always get away with stuff because it's just like, oh, pay the fine, don't do it again. And I think a lot of the big tech companies get away with it, or not get away with it. They're used to it, and like there's one going around at the moment. Like I got the Meta Ray-Bans. I can't use a lot of the functions here in the UK or in Europe when I was in Portugal the other week.
Right.
And I know you can use it in America because the regulation and law isn't as serious. And you wonder why, like the people that, in my view, are really, and I think the Middle East are doing a fantastic job at the moment, really
putting the UAE government is on fire. They are, they are way out in front. Yes.
Yeah, that's something I want to speak about in a sec, because I know you've got a lot of insight that I can learn from on that. But just to that point quickly, it's a great point you're making on regulation, because I was thinking of it like you need a like something that can expand depending, like your point, like it's open enough, but it's not fixed. Like if you go down a motorway at fixed speed, you can't apply that kind of thinking back to our earlier point around these technologies. And but then at the same time, like I don't know,
Right.
it comes into a lot of
Right.
things from like how do you teach that from kids so they're aware of it when they step into these positions, which they will do in 20, 30, 40
Absolutely.
years, however long it takes, and they'll have that mindset. So it's a really good
Right. So I
point.
think I think the answer to that, to like boil it down to just really simple for me, would be
Mm.
you regulate physics. You don't regulate the digital. You can't regulate concepts. You regulate physics, right? And so
Yeah.
why doesn't everybody have a 5,000 mile per hour car?
Yeah.
Physics doesn't allow us to travel that fast in the short distances we need to go, right?
Yes.
So to that point, right, with cars and stuff like that, like, you just regulate, okay, it's got to have a seatbelt. You can, regulate certain things, but nobody's ever said, you know, Tom, you can't build your own car that can do whatever. Nobody's ever said that.
That's true. Good
There
point.
is no regulation to prevent you from building a far superior automotive product,
Yeah, free market. If you can build it,
right?
go build it.
But
Yeah.
what you do is you regulate the physics. Here's what your car can't do. It can't go so fast that the brakes won't stop it in time.
Mm.
It can't, as soon as you start it up, burst into flames, burning city blocks because you use some unstable chemical, right?
Mm.
So that's kind of how I would look at regulating, these innovations is I would just regulate the physics. Who
Yeah.
used it? Who deployed it? Did they use it in an illegal manner? Boom, you're responsible.
Yeah.
Because like I said in the
Interesting.
beginning, I'm an accelerationist. I believe that, innovation can solve a lot. There are
Yeah.
harms in it. We can develop new medicines or develop new, biological agents, right?
Yeah.
But isn't that how humanity has gotten to the stage
Right.
that we are? Is through innovation. And yeah, some people got messed up and some people used it wrong and but ultimately we figured out how to survive in the face of that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well. And you never it's like it's like if you went through life without any challenges or any problems, it wouldn't be I don't know if this is a good comparison, but it wouldn't be like fulfilling almost. And like running a business, as hard as it is, and you'll know this, I know this, and any entrepreneur and anyone going into business, even anyone that's that is in business, it's you cherish those wins much more when you have those losses. And I know sometimes that's a bit of a blanket statement compared to the bad things that can happen with technology and the
Right.
bad things that can happen. But overall, it's like you look through the past, it's like compared to where we were, we're thriving. Like every stat shows how much better we're living and how and
100%.
it's super
100%.
yeah
100%. So to your point on that, I have a funny story. So back when I was in school, I had a great teacher, Randy Bellick, and I was taking a test and I got like an 89.4. And I'm like, come on, you can kind of just, you got to give me like, you got to bump it up. Like, come on, that's still an A, right? And he said
yeah
something that was really profound, right? He said, well, if I gave you this, then it wouldn't matter. And I'm like, yeah, well, obviously it matters because that'd be an A. And he's like, no, it wouldn't matter to you because you would know. So
yeah
when you accomplish something moving forward, it needs to matter to somebody. Specifically, if you're doing it, it has to matter to you, right? And
yeah
so you look at like sports, right? Michael Jordan, he's, top of the top, the GOAT, all of that. How many shots did he miss? More than
yeah
anybody else, right? You look at, the X Games performers. I promise you, they have more broken bones and more falls than anyone ever. That's why they're as good as they are, right? So you learn from your mistakes, and
mm.
it's not always fun. Nobody ever wants to, but
Well, I think it's a great way, and I always love associating sport to business because sport's very competitive, and I think businesses
Mhm.
it's got that competitive angle, and people become very successful just because they're purely competitive. Like they're not. I would say I don't know these people that they get so obsessed with like the game of business rather than actually the value of the customer. Like, and that makes them
Absolutely.
very good at giving
Absolutely.
value to the customer because they're
Absolutely.
looking at it from like a game plan. It's an interesting way.
Absolutely. I was watching one of Lex Friedman's podcasts earlier
Great
last
podcast.
week, I think it was, and he had Jordan Peterson on there. And so, to your point about business and sports, sports is ridiculously competitive, especially when you get to the highest levels. I think business is its own animal
Mm.
because, and this is why I bring that reference up. Jordan Peterson talked about, in the context of a game, right? If me and you are playing chess and I throw a basketball in the middle of the chessboard, well, I broke the rules. We're not playing chess and we're not playing basketball.
That's a good
This is
point.
something else. And I think
Yeah,
that's kind of indicative of how business is because I've yet to find a rule book for
yeah,
business that everyone has to follow. There is none. It's not existent.
yes,
It's not even make money. It's some nuance of what you want as the leader or owner of that business, right? And so
yeah,
that just opens the door to your point about like the just hyper competitive nature of business that because it's
yeah,
unbounded. It's literally
yeah.
unbounded.
Do you think with and then I will tie it into uh the next topic, but do you think with developers and engineers and people that are becoming instrumental that there's that level of competition growing like because AI's potentially doing more and more. I'm not saying I think it's overhyped how much it's doing. Like
Oh, I
I
agree.
still
It's
look
100% overhyped. Yes,
it's,
yes, yes.
it's like it's not doing everything it's promising to do, or if it does it
Correct.
very, very quickly. But do you think that's like going to increase like that competition as more people are coming into it because of schools starting to teach it and data science becoming more popular? And I'm trying to think of like how that whole world become much more like like a game, like a sport almost, because you're gonna have to be top of the game to be a developer for these places. But at the same time, there's no rule book, so you're gonna get like some people
Right.
like what happened with the chatbot out of China. That it's like a group of makeshift, scrappy
Correct.
engineers that build something
Correct.
better than these like well
Correct.
accoladed developers.
So
Yeah,
I think it will. I think it will. I think so. I've said this countless times. So vibe coding or AI assisted coding, however you want to frame it, it's going to do a couple things. It's going to make really good developers spectacularly great at what they do. It's going to make poor developers absolute horrible at what they do because it's going to introduce code that they can't troubleshoot. They don't know. It may accomplish that feature at that time, but then when, as you know, as the business requirements change, you can't change that. And that code may be a year old. And so, I do think it's democratizing knowledge, right, in the developer space, which is always great. You have, you know, people with varied perspectives, and I've said for years, intelligence, I believe, intelligence is equally distributed across the globe, right? The people with money, the companies with resources have a tendency to kind of gather as much of it as they can, but there's still like there's some brilliant kid right now who's probably 5, 6 years old somewhere in some third world country that is next level genius, and I hope he gets access to the resources to realize that genius and the impact that he or she can have on the world, right? So that's kind of the utopian or Pollyannic view, I guess, of it.
I think it's an optimistic view. I like it. I like that
Yeah,
kind of view
yeah. I mean,
because it's
so I tell people all the time, I'm a short-term pessimist, a long-term optimist. I love humanity. I think that
that's very similar to
humanity
me.
has one of the most brilliant characteristics God has put
Yeah.
into any creature, and it's adaptability.
Yes.
If you look at the
Adaptability.
way you look at so I'm quite sure I'm much older than you. So if you look at just in your short lifespan,
Yeah.
how
I'm
much the
32.
world has changed,
Yeah.
and you've adapted, and you're okay. And to your point, statistically, globally, humanity is better. Now, are there pockets that we can work on? dude, we're humans. We're flawed. There's always going to be things we can fix, right?
Yeah.
Things we don't like. Have you ever read Nick Bostrom?
Yeah, of course. Yes, I spoke to
Astronomical Waste, right?
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of I 100% agree with that. I think more resources, more intellectual capital, more human capital needs to be pushed into advancement and innovation as opposed to extraction and aggregation.
Sure. Yeah. That's a good way of
Because
looking
we
at it.
all
And I think
benefit.
yeah. Well, that's a good point. And like how we um right, similar to the point you're making, like how we benefit and what we use the technology for, and like how people can. I think we're like really weird weird like how the human race thinks at times. Like we love
Absolutely.
like how media spins things and how we're like almost attracted to bad news at times and bad things. And I wonder with like algorithms, back to our point earlier, like how, but there's also a lot of good things, and I think it's very interesting to see what we're becoming attracted to in this digital world and how people don't want to do that. I know I'm going slightly off context, but
No,
to
you're
your point,
fine. You're fine. It's the
I'm
conversation, right?
very exactly. But I'm very similar to you. Like I'm very optimistic about things that are going to happen, and I really can't understand how like life seems to be cracking on as normal. Like there's very bad things happening. It's very sad to see, but it does make you think. Like I wonder why we position ourselves sometimes, and what role the technology plays, and what role AI might play. I really don't know. I'm not trying to guess or say what will or won't happen, because even the smartest people with all the money in the world still can't tell you what's going to happen later today or tomorrow.
Right.
Like they just,
Right.
very
You're
good guess.
familiar with the cone of ignorance, right?
Exactly.
Right.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and it makes me think.
No,
Like I'm glad
I
these
just,
people.
I look at it. So I wrote a book, 2019, discussing all of this. And it was called, before it was generative AI, it was called, natural language generation, things like that. But in the front of my book, I talk about how if you were like a space race, right?
Yeah,
And you came to Earth and you saw humanity, right? And you could be like, oh my God, these are some amazing people, depending on who you ran into. But based on where we direct the majority of our resources, you would probably put a net around the world, a space net,
that's very
right?
true.
Because
Yeah,
because you like, okay, they have some really great, really fantastic characteristics,
yes,
but what they have specialized in is tragic, and that's tribal warfare, right?
yeah.
We have like surgically honed our skills at tribal warfare,
Mm.
even with the complete understanding that collaboration has got us to the level of advancement that we are. There's still that slant towards tribal warfare. So that's why I say that whole, if we move into, more of a innovation and collaboration as opposed to, extraction and aggregation. I think,
Yeah.
and I'm an optimist. I think that's where we will go. But I think right now we're just that kind of quirky creature that has so much upside, but we use it for stupid stuff, right? And who knows
Yeah.
what goes on in the human brain, and this person does something, and you know,
Yeah. Or maybe the aliens are looking at us and just like, look at these fucking idiots. Like they came with
there's no
all these things.
telling, right? There's no telling. Like, yeah, they could be really great, but they're kind of crazy when it comes to why would you do that to your own planet or to your own people? Like that kind of can't you just outthink the problem, right? And that's kind of
Yeah.
the direction that I hope, for my kids and future generations that we actually figure out how to use these technologies with these spectacular capabilities to literally outthink our problems.
Yeah. Maybe well your kids will have the capabilities of quantum computing maybe. So they'll be able to solve some of the hardest questions very easily.
Well, I
I
mean,
don't know.
it's one of those things, right? With more knowledge comes more questions. So I think that's spectacular, right? The universe is a very big place. So if we figure out the moon, then okay, let's figure out Mars. Okay, well then we need to figure out on and on and on, right? And faster
Yeah.
than light travel, and all of those kind of things. And so I like I said, I'm short term pessimist, but long term I think that the future is very bright as long as we get away from um, path dependence, right? The whole
Yeah.
scarcity and fear mongering. I think those are the two biggest problems in the media and in mindsets right now. It's scarcity and pushing that scarcity narrative and pushing the fear mongering, right? Oh my
Yeah.
God, these people are trying to eat you or take away or whatever. And the reality is, the majority of people just want a decent life. The majority.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And the majority of people just want to do good. Like, I don't know
Right, I
many.
believe that. I 100%. Yes.
Yeah.
We have the 10% of idiots or narcissists or whatever bucket. You want to put that in. They seem to get all the attention and focus and stuff. But the reality is the world is still spinning right now because the world has not gone crazy, contrary to what you will see.
Yeah. Like, someone said the analogy, like up at space, we're like little ants that we look down at. Like, you know how you watch ants run
Of
from
course.
like thing to thing. We're
Right.
exactly the same.
Right.
As soon as you get to space level, it's like when you're at space station, it's just like, yeah. I think Chris Hadfield was saying he's just like really puts, and he's obviously a really decorated astronaut. Just put it in perspective, like how not how insignificant we are. That's the wrong word, but just how much a lot of these things don't matter, and like how delicate
Correct.
things are. And we, like you're saying, we look at it like the majority of people want to do good things and build good things, yet we're fed through algorithms
Yes.
bad things. I think my
Yeah.
algorithm's pretty good, to be fair. Like, it's pretty technology focused and meme
Yeah, I
focused.
know. I have to go in and manipulate my algorithms often. Honestly, yes, it's
Yeah.
work, but you know, but so no, I mean, I feel like people like you, people like me, who actually have more of optimistic view of society, and the gift that I have that I can leverage technology for good, aka preventing NSFW content from reaching the eyes of children, Falcons AI,
Yeah.
or we've got another solution that does uh, bird flu detection, cursory, right? It's not clinical, it's cursory. Bird flu detection for rural farmers. They could just take a picture and it kind of, determines, hey, the chicken has something with bird flu, right?
Nice.
Just things like that to reduce supply chain volatility or, food insecurity. I think that I honestly believe there are more people like us than
Yes.
the other. Now, are there a lot of bad actors or whatever? I'm quite sure. I mean, I'm not naive, right? I am, older. I have traveled the world. I've seen some things, but I feel like the more, and why I'm saying that is to get back to your, question about, my thoughts on the democratization of AI and the spread of, how that's going to
Yeah.
impact developers is I feel like the more people that have access, the better we'll all be.
1,000%. What's the to that point, like, about democratization you're in the UAE, and I think last time we spoke you were in Egypt, if I'm
Yeah,
correct?
I'm
Or
still in Cairo right now. I have a couple more
Nick
meetings
Carter.
and then I'll wrap it up. Yeah.
Gotcha. But what's that like? What's that whole community focus? Because they seem just really optimistic from like what they're building. But one thing I've not asked before or not thought about, you made me think about it just then, Michael, is like and I'm sure it's growing, but the whole community side and people really getting behind what AI can do, and whether that's on the infrastructure side, like all the deals that are being announced for building new
Mm-hmm.
data centers, infrastructure, through to people. I know people are moving there left, right, and centre. Like, I know someone who's moved from
Right.
London, who's Steve Suarez. He's a high exec at HSBC, and he's moved to Dubai now, and he runs a great company, Horizon X. And the amount of people that I know that are going out that way, and the more things, like I was in Riyadh last year. They were
Oh, I
building
love
some,
Riyadh. Riyadh's really nice.
yeah,
I've
beautiful
gotten
people,
treated really
really
well
friendly.
there. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
My
but
time
yeah,
in
what's your
Saudi.
whole take?
So here's the thing, right? And this once again why I focus a lot on path dependence. You don't have. So are you familiar with why cell phones proliferated across Africa?
No, I'm not. Please tell me. Yeah,
Because they weren't beholden to landlines because they didn't develop that,
right.
right?
So they
So
wouldn't
it's
work.
easy for them to go and adopt cell phones because they didn't all have a phone at the house, right?
Okay, yeah, got you.
Right.
That's a good
So it's
point.
like, oh wow, we can have, okay, perfect. And so I feel like that's the way it is in the UAE, um, because they're not beholden to a 100, 200, 300-year-old history of this is just how we do things. And if you
Mm,
go back to, Sheikh Zayed, like he was a spectacular visionary leader. And because they don't have the shackles of the old way to do things, I feel like the leadership there has the freedom to say, this is a great idea. Let's try this out. And they can do it, right? And, it pans out. So what I feel like that's done is fostered a sense of let's do it in that space. And so you have a lot of developers, coming to the UAE, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Russell Khama, places like that, Sharjah. And they're like, okay, well, I can try to build something here. Sure, why not? I can try to do it. And I'm not going to be hamstrung by, well, this is the ISP you have to go through, and here are your, data limits, and here's this regulation that's preventing you from doing X, Y, and Z. They don't have all that. It's more of, I'll say it's exploratory, right? Is the word I would use. They're kind of in an exploratory phase, which is spectacular. The other thing that kind of makes that all work, and so I kind of like weave a lot of my stuff together, and here's why I have the thoughts that I have, is collaboration, right? So they don't say, you cannot come here if you're from X. They don't say that. They say, if you're of, X, whatever, quality, caliber, income, whatever, sure, here's your visa. Come here and try something. Try it out. If it doesn't work or you get stupid, they send you packing really quick, right?
Hey.
So I don't really, and I think that's what it is. It's the leadership is in a exploratory phase with regards to innovation, and it's not just, rando exploratory. It's kind of measured. You could tell there's some thought behind it. And I'll give you a prime example. So the UAE government decided to integrate AI into policymaking. How brilliant is that, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
you can look at so much variable change within policies and, demographics and psychographics and, economics and spending patterns to facilitate a policy that best impacts most people. We can't do that as humans. We've tried it, and what happened? Lobbyists, special interests, things like that, industry ties, whatever. So the fact that they've gone that far, to me, shows that they're onto something. Like they see the future. And what's that old saying? If you know where your industry is going, why aren't you already there? Like they're
Yeah.
literally, to steal a hockey analogy, they're literally skating to where the puck is going to be, and that has to be
Yeah.
applauded, right? Yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
huge fan. It's super safe. It's super clean. Like the Emirati people are some of the nicest, most intelligent people that I've been around in all of my travels. And for some reason, I don't know what it is, blessed by God or something, but their leadership gets it.
Yeah. They understand it. They
Now that's why
understand where
everybody's
the
moving there. That's why all the talent's going there. That's why you have, all of the big, AI government or government, the U.S. AI tech leaders there. What last week or the week before, like they see that this is how it's going, and I got to give a lot of credit to KSA too. They're moving in that direction. They get it too. They see it. And it's like, hey, you know what? Let's move our people this way, and this is the right way. And and I tend to agree.
Yeah, it's a good point, and they're making really bold bets from what I can see. Like, and they don't. I mean, they're in a fortunate position that, to your point just there, they can move things very quickly, and they can
Yes.
make executive decisions very, very fast to make things go that way. And everyone says the same thing that I meet. And when I was there myself, I was in Riyadh, and I haven't been to UAE for a long time. But last time I was properly there was when I was really young, before I even got into like literally in my teenage years, and like, I've got friends that live out there, and some of them live in Qatar. But my friend who is from Saudi Arabia, I went to university. I lived in Nottingham, and he was in the same apartment block. Just such welcoming, warm, forward thinking, and direct as well, which you really appreciate, because here in the UK we're not as. This is a personal opinion. We're very nice and yeah, sounds good, but very slow in making things happen. It's one of my hates with how we do business, and it's why I love working with Americans, because they're very honest, but direct in the sense that they'll always give you second chances, and it seems a very, very similar mental attitude in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, UAE, all those places. And I mean, that is what's going to drive like the next big companies, and or not just big companies, but drive the next big innovation that you think, wow, like they pulled that off. Like, how the hell have they pulled that off? And I think that's going to
I
happen a
agree.
lot with people like
Yeah,
that.
I agree. You know, I think that the U.S. kind of is different. We, for the most part, nobody cares about failure. They care about effort, right? So
Yeah,
there's no
that's a good
shame.
point.
There's no shame in failure. And a lot of the
Yes.
places that I've been around the world, and I feel like, and I'll give, India as a prime example. There's just an enormous amount of mental capital in India, but I feel like culturally there's a shame aspect, right? Is why
Mm.
you don't see as much innovation as other places coming out. Now they are, but the U.S. I feel like is kind of in its own little space because okay, you tried and failed, but now we know what doesn't work. Okay, try it again. Okay, do that. Try that big thing. Try that ungodly thing, right? Try just bigger, better, different, faster, you know. And so that's what spurs innovation.
Yeah.
I think the UAE is definitely on that path, but I think they're not. I don't know. It's it's not. They don't have that shame aspect. You know what I'm saying? Like they prefer people to try. Like come here, try it.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get blasted for failure. You'll get blasted for laziness and not trying, right? And so that's one of the key things that I take from there is they're about, you know, move things, get it done, make it happen really fast, you know. Safety, human safety obviously is a very, very big deal and you have to appreciate that. Right? They do not play
Mm.
around. It's
Mm.
get right or get gone. I love that.
Yes. I
No
love it.
problem with that. But from a tech side of things, I really feel like that region, Qatar, Oman, KSA, UAE, Bahrain, I think there's a huge leadership shift in the notion of let's build systems to help us outthink our problems, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what I think
That's a
is
good way.
lacking. Obviously, both of us are Western, coming from the
Yeah.
West. I think we're starting to trail off in that, whereas they're picking it up. And they're picking it up at like the most opportune time, like at the emergence of AI. That's when they're doing it. Like that's like brilliant, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They're putting in and they're doing the. I think where my mind goes to, and obviously I'm not familiar with it. I haven't visited anywhere near enough or looked at it anywhere near enough, but it keeps coming across my radar much more frequently what they're doing. And I think the big thing is they're building the infrastructure very fast. Like
Yes.
they're like the actual hardware, the campuses, the innovation centers, and I think how all that kind of side, which I'm sure you've seen much more. I don't know how much do you see that kind of aspect of it when you're there, like all the building and not just like, oh yeah, we're building better software, but they're building
No. It's from a hardware
whole
level. Like
yeah,
it's everything. It's infrastructure. It's even down to the communications infrastructure. Like they're pushing for fiber and 5G and 6G and Wi-Fi. Like it's everything has to be like no, we need next gen, and we'll work
yeah,
out the bugs as we go, right? And so that's kind of what I was saying earlier about you regulate the physical. Like if something goes
yes,
wrong, you hold somebody accountable. If it goes right, give them the rewards and keep pushing humanity forward. And so that's kind of, what I see happening. And you see it, the data campuses, the data centers, just, the renewable side of things, just how they're deploying their resources for, and when I say sustainability, I don't mean it in the green sense, but they are doing that. I mean from a civilization sustainability perspective. Like
yeah, I got you.
civilization is moving this way. Let's ensure that it continues moving forward by providing this and this, and the government is dedicated to that, and that's
Yeah, that's dope.
saying
It's
something.
I can't wait for Neon to be built. Well, that city's gonna be crazy. Like I don't know what they're
Well,
doing with it,
I
but
mean,
like
all of that, Octagon, I think is what it's called,
yeah,
Neon,
Octagon,
Octagon,
what's that?
all of that. Yeah, and I mean, if you just look at Like that's innovation. And so this is kind of once again why I'm on that Nick Bostrom, that astronomical weight. Start
Yeah.
pouring resources into innovation to overcome human problems, right? Stop worrying about the the treatment and start worrying about the cure, right? We're
Yes.
all better.
All there already. It's a good idea. How have you found it building business over there, and that whole shift from like West, like you were obviously working in America and doing things over there, like now you're in Cairo and you're visiting a lot for the Middle East, UAE and Saudi Arabia. What's that you were mentioning there? Because when I went to Riyadh, I loved it because there was no homeless, there was no there was no crime, there was no risk. Like I felt so safe. My friend who took me to this beautiful dinner, like, and he was just like, "Oh, I can leave my car unlocked," and like he was like, "I'd be amazed if someone nicked it because it's just so secure and safe, and they respect themselves, and they." And I'm sure we do it in the UK, but we're going for a real bad thing where there's a lot of homeless people everywhere, and it's very sad
Mm-hmm.
to see. But
Mm-hmm.
and also because of that, you have a lot of crime, and
Mm-hmm.
I wonder from like a business aspect or a living aspect how you found that like building over there and like having that level of optimism that they have as well, which really probably spurs you on to think, I need to do better, I need to build this better, I need to build for that application, I need to build this model, I need to.
So I'm gonna tell you the trick, and I figured out their trick, and it's brilliant. It's
Tell me.
brilliant.
Mm,
Our brain is controlled by, what our mammalian brain or whatever, fear, right? All of this stuff that can dominate your attention. Here's the brilliant trick. And it's not even a trick. It's just, I think it's a strategy that they
right.
have pulled off. If I bring Tom to the UAE and I know he's highly adept at this one thing,
Yeah.
how much better can he be at that one thing if he does not have to worry about his personal safety, his home being broken into, anything like that? That frees up more of his cognitive capacity to focus on that thing, and we win. That's the trick. I think it's brilliant, and it makes so much sense. If you think about it like that, if you don't have to worry about your personal safety, how much more of your brain power can you put into doing that thing you do better?
Yeah.
That's the trick.
Yeah.
So to your point, yes, when you get there and you're focused on something and you say, okay, and I'm not talking about, all the high end cars and homes and towers and all that. That's all well and good. I'm talking about just from a personal, mental, how much of your brain do you get to use?
Mm.
That's a genius strategy because if you're not worried about it, I'm not worried about my wife, you know, walking around the lake because she can't sleep at 1 a.m. I'm not
Mm.
worried. Nothing's going to happen. I promise you, she's done it. Nothing's going to happen.
Yeah. Gets rid
So
of a lot of.
I can stay
Yeah.
on my laptop figuring out that last, you know, feature that I need to adjust to make that model higher performing. And then she's going to come back in and be like, hey, blah, blah, blah. It's sunlight. You want a coffee or something? I
I
mean,
hadn't
think
thought
about
about that.
that from that perspective, right? You get to use more of your brain in the
Yeah.
UAE. That would be, if I was running their like marketing, that would be my selling point. Like, are you, X type of person? Come here and we promise you'll have access to more of your brain because you literally do.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way because it gets rid of a lot of like anxiousness, I guess, or
Absolutely. Anxiety,
overthinking,
nervousness, stress,
stress. Yeah,
everything that distracts you from being able to focus on that thing that you are good at or that thing that you want to be good at, right?
yeah, yeah. It's a really good point. I had a question that I was thinking about earlier. So all that it really fascinates me, and maybe we'll meet up over that way because I'm coming to UAE and to Middle East and Saudi Arabia a lot more because there's just so much stuff I'm fascinated by. And I got Jitex. Have you ever been
Right.
to Jitex? Yeah,
Yeah.
Jitex.
Yeah. So that's the
What's that
other
like?
side, right? That's the
Yeah,
other side. Gentex is really good, but what you see now, and I think this is a problem, once again, it's the convergence. Everybody's doing the same thing.
right.
Everybody's doing the same thing. The minute a new jargon piece of tech comes out, everybody's doing RAG, everybody's doing agentic, everybody's doing MCP, you know,
Yeah,
once again, path dependent. Who's actually over here innovating? Who's doing something to better that or different, that's faster, that's cheaper, that doesn't require as much water or energy to do that thing? You know, more efficient algorithms. Who's developing, things to apply to your feed, or solutions or agents or workers or bots or whatever to apply to your feed that you don't have to worry about idiotic signal boosting.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
I mean,
right.
if I was YouTube, I would make that an option. Click this button and we'll remove, content that you deem idiotic or fear mongering, or, things that just don't really matter, or divisive speech or whatever.
Yeah.
Serve you more educational, more verifiable, fact-based, utility videos or whatever. I would pay $1 a month for that feature.
Yeah.
Cool. Click, done. I don't want to see any of that crap. If I can't use it, so a lot of the things that I try to do when I speak to colleges or businesses or whatever is I feel like there's a lack of actionable information, right? Like people just tell you stuff, whether it's to get a response or whatever, get your take. I try to provide actionable information. So the actionable information that I'll deliver to you is, yes, go to the UAE, go to a decoding data science meetup, go to a coders HQ, travel around, find meetups, talk to people, and pose that question to them. Since you've been here and that you don't have to worry about your personal security and safety, do you feel like you have access to more of your mental capacity? I promise you, it will shock you.
Mm. You're selling me. I might end up taking one of the ads I'm seeing on my Instagram, like move to UAE for, I think it's like $2,500 or something to start up over there.
Oh, I
Like,
don't
it's
know.
really,
Now, like I said, there
really
are
cheap.
downsides, right? The real estate prices are shocking. Like it's not even funny. It is shocking. But
Yeah.
that, and back to the GITEX thing. So a lot of Me Too companies, I would say, chasing the money, and I get it. It's part of the thing. You see some innovation, but the majority of it is made up of salesmen, right?
Yeah.
And it's not really my thing. I'm more of a ground level. I want to talk tech, and let's see what are you working on? What are you innovating? Can we work together? Right. So I feel like over there I've got really turned off on the term partnership. Right. So I get an ungodly amount of emails, LinkedIn requests, and whatever about, hey, let's partner. We can provide you, these AI engineers are, okay, so number one, that's not a partnership. What you want me to do is give you money. Create a problem.
That's
You want me to
exactly
create a problem in my own organization to then turn around and pay you for it, right?
Yeah.
So you have a lot of that going on, but that shouldn't take away from the good that's going on there. I mean, there's no place is Shangri-La, but Dubai and Singapore, hands down, are very, very, very evolutionary. They're pushing things forward in a good way, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, Singapore's I've not been there for ages, but it did make me think about the conferences. What my kind of hate is, Michael, like how I went to this one the other week. I went to one in Porto, and I was on a panel, and it was great. It was really, there were parts of it that I really liked. I think they're going to do a lot better because it's only in their second year. But they put panels on with like 5 people and 30 minutes. And I'm like, what are you going to get out of that? Like,
Nothing.
it's
Yeah.
pointless. Like,
Yeah.
by the time you've done introductions and whatever, it's like 3 minutes a person. It's just like, what you
Right.
want me to ask these real hard hitting, detailed, like tell me about the investment landscape, where the money's going, what AI technology is going to be like pivotal. It's like I can't get into all that shit like in half an hour, 40
Well,
minutes.
yeah. So that's another problem, right? You have surface level experts. They can go
Yeah.
and read up on the latest stuff, watch a couple blogs, read a couple blogs, watch a couple podcasts, and then all of a sudden they're a transformation expert. They're an AI consultant, things like that, right? So you do have a lot of that, and a lot of them are on this panel speaking circuit. Dubai is and the UAE is really good about information exchange, but that's part of the downside. It's actually vetting the credibility of what these people are saying or what they're even talking about? Or are they just up there, just basically parroting or regurgitating something that somebody else says? Like I
Yeah.
shudder to think about the number of people that would have been on a lot of those panels that have ever had an original thought. To be honest, and that's not, taking anything away from the venue. And, I know you want to fill seats and people are about networking and this and the other, but, you run into a lot of that where you're like,
Yeah.
that's an interesting statement. Expand on that. And they're like, well, and you're like, oh, like, dude,
Down, kind of like, you can't do it.
I get it. You want to be on the scene, but just please, you're running the risk of misleading a lot of people. So
It's a good point, and it really annoys me because that doesn't annoy me. I to your point, like I get why they're doing it. They're on this circuit track. They've got to do it, like promotion, marketing, sales, whatever.
right,
It's because of the conversations they might have off the stage. It's kind of like a credibility boost or whatever. But I was at this one last week, and I thought like it's a customer focused conference, and I just didn't understand it. Great company, what they're doing works with some of the biggest brands. And you'd think you want to spend that time showing, or if I ran one of these companies, and I mean, I'm currently looking at starting a company in facilities management using IoT devices, and you think, so a startup separate to media, and you think, if I was running these kind of businesses, and tell me if you see it differently, Michael, surely if you're a customer of a product, a platform, sure, you use some form of tech stack for Falcons AI. If you're
yes,
going to those places, you want to learn how to use the product better to make your business better. Or that's
absolutely.
how I'd be thinking. And Salesforce did it very, very well, where about half the bottom floor of the like expo, they took out the Excel Center, which is a massive arena in London, and half of it was literally a Q&A help guide, so almost like
That's
an
awesome.
Apple where you
Yeah,
take
that's
your laptop.
awesome.
It was awesome. Like, show what's your
Right.
query. A Salesforce expert would show you how to solve it. And they had another area which was huge. Like, I had a photo of it, and it's like an exam hall, and it was accreditations. And I was like, that's why they're probably the biggest company in SaaS, because they know how to get people embedded, not just feed you. And there was that in the side session and stuff. But yeah, I don't know what your take is on that, but those
No,
kind
no,
of conferences, like,
I agree 100%. And so, to your point about, us and use cases, like we have all kinds of use cases. We do like so there's obviously the NSFW, the, content detection. What about
yeah,
forensics? So you invert the model and start searching for NSFW content, right? That's another use case for it, right? So how can I get, more utility for you as a customer out of our solution, right? Why don't more companies do that other than, just blather stupid taglines and, hey, Chat GPT, spin me up, some keyword heavy thing that I can talk to and sound, you know what I'm saying? Like, I agree with you 100%. Why not speak to the needs of the customer? Do you even know your customers? Or are you
that's what it
just
makes
out
me.
here selling?
Yeah, it honestly makes me think. Like, do you know who your customer? I just think it's a waste of resource. It's like you've spent all this money. Surely you'd want to spend it on helping your customers who help you put on this sort of conference. Like in my
Correct.
head, it just doesn't make sense. It's like it's a waste of
Correct.
money in my head.
It really doesn't, but a lot of the, I don't know, we're definitely in a hype cycle. That's not even a secret. And I think a lot of the money is going to fuel that as opposed to substance, right? And I speak to substance with regards to, people selling, to your point about, are you actually looking at your customer problems and selling them a solution? So we had an instance where, it was an OCR implementation, right? And we get going and, oh, IT director, I know all about it. Yep. It's all good. Blah, 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 whatever. And then we get, weeks into the implementation and it's, well, a couple weeks into the implementation and it's, well, so, when am I going to be able to, fire these people? And I'm like, do what? Well, when am I, going to be able to, fire all these people that do data entry? Because, it's missing some, some text in these, and they were really robust forms. It's
Yeah,
missing text in these forms. Well, it's OCR. It's a probability, right? Anything over, especially in OCR, like for a dense form, dude,
yeah,
if you're getting over 96, 98%, you're killing it.
yeah.
But it was legal. So, no, we need 100%. Well, who told you that? Well, I mean, it's okay. So it's AI is a probability. It's not rules based, right? There's a difference. And in this, I told you you would still need a human in the loop at a minimum. And you're saying you're mad now because it doesn't do 100%. So, and who I blame for that is that circuit, that middle layer. Oh, AI is the answer to everything. Oh, we're firing all of our devs and we're going to have all AI coders and blah, blah, blah. And one man, $1 billion, agent ran company. Ask Duolingo how that's going for them.
Yeah.
Did you see that
Yeah.
news?
About what?
Duolingo.
No, I saw. But did I say about Duolingo? I've seen a lot about Klarna at the moment, and
Klarna.
Duolingo.
Yeah.
It's all kind of
Yeah.
stuff, and they're in trouble because people are defaulting on their loans over a bloody burrito. So it's an interesting situation.
Right. And so, and I blame the people in this layer, right, that are pseudo experts selling solutions that
Yeah,
are not fully formed yet. AI is not to that level yet. It's doing some great things, but you're talking about, you're selling an Olympic track athlete who's only 9 years old.
yeah, that's a good way
It's
of saying
never
it.
going to work. They may
Yeah,
be the fastest kid in their class, but it's never going to work. So you got to give it more time and understand more about the space. And I feel like people are just out there just spewing, shit just because it sounds good and it makes them look like they're good because they're credible because they're on some panel or something.
yeah. So that I've just been thinking about that Duolingo thing you're mentioning. I've got it up here. So there's an article on Fortune, um, and not specifically on Duolingo, but it's a good point, tying into what I want to go into next. But like it says, Duolingo. This is on Fortune. Duolingo CEO walks back AI first comments. I
Mm-hmm.
do not see AI as replacing what our employees do. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
another one, amid backlash, Duolingo backtracks on plans for AI pivot. And there's loads. Business Insider, I don't really like Business Insider, but Duolingo CEO says there may still be schools in our AI future. Fast Company. Victor Day, who I've had on here, he's a brilliant journalist. He writes for Fast Company.
Okay.
Going AI first appears to be backfiring Klarna and Duolingo. So that's interesting. I think there's going to be more of that, right? Like
There's only
people's.
those are that the only reason that's making the headlines is because they're so big. Now think about all the SMEs that's happening to.
Yeah.
I promise
Yeah.
you, it's a lot, and it's because people don't understand. You have everybody pushing this stuff, and nobody really wants to talk about the limitations right now.
Right. Right. Because I don't want to look at how maybe open or what do you call it? Like um how their business might be not up to speed on these kind of things, or like what
Correct.
yeah, what they've got missing, like gaps in their armor, or it's not really gaps in their
Right.
armor because it's developing, but like they don't want to be seen as we're not fast forward, like that whole concept, Michael, an AI first company. I think it's stupid. I'm like, well, you should be customer first company if you want to be a good company. Like
Okay.
that's
Do
how
you
it.
remember the smart contracts craze? You don't remember the blockchain smart contracts craze?
I remember the blockchain craze, but like and banks and trying to go on smart, but I don't know.
Yeah, so smart contracts are executed and you don't need a human to transfer the money because once this metric is
Yeah.
hit, it's going to trigger this and blah, blah, blah. And that was supposed to be the thing, but it
No
wasn't
more
fully.
banks.
Do I think it was a great concept? Absolutely. But it's just like the agentic space right now. It's great and it can do some great things, but it's still not fully formed yet, regardless of, if Microsoft puts it in Foundry or, Google puts it in AI Studio or whatever. And I'm fans of both of those products, but it's just not fully formed yet. And then
Sure.
I'll give what's his name Danell, the Anthropic CEO, when he came out saying, yeah, LLMs hallucinate, but not more than humans. But you know
Yeah.
what? That may be true, but that's not what we build technology for. We build technology to do things better than we do it, so we don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Right? So to me, he basically admitted what I'm saying is yes, it's not fully formed yet. Okay, that's great. So just say that it's great at certain things, but it's not fully formed yet. Right? So be
Yeah.
careful with how you deploy it. Don't fire your workforce because you think that some clown just told you that you can run everything through an agent, you're going to be in trouble, and you should go to jail for labor malpractice if you do that.
Yeah.
So
There should
that
be
goes back to what I
real.
was saying about, how to regulate this stuff. Regulate the physical. Don't regulate the innovation. Did you deploy it to slash your workforce only to turn around and cost your shareholders money? Okay, not a problem. You go to jail and seizure of assets and whatever. It wasn't a bad business decision. It was
Yeah.
reckless.
Bad moral decision. Yeah.
It's reckless, right?
Yeah.
It's
Just
one
not.
thing to
Yeah.
downsize because you're losing money, right? It's one thing to downsize because, we don't need this division anymore because we're going to outsource it to, some smaller firm that can do it better and faster, and that's what they do. That's fine, but this great replacement of, oh, we're going to replace all of our developers, or oh, we're going to replace this entire department with AI, and then it falls flat on its face. That, to me, that's almost criminal. If
Yeah.
it's a company with shareholders and a large enough labor pool, right? You're literally shitting on people, your shareholders, as well as the people that have worked for you, for some hype train that you think that you're going to be, the second coming of Jesus for. That's insane.
Very
That's
good
how they
point.
talk about it, though. Literally,
Yeah.
if you heard the CEO of Klarna,
Yeah.
he was talking like cult-like language,
Yeah.
right? Oh,
Yeah.
we're gonna blah 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 and this and that and the other, and then oh shit, right?
You
Be
kind of
more,
shoot yourself in
be
the
more
foot. 'Cause
diligent.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't understand that kind of like these people are smart thinkers. Like they're successful. They've built products and things that are very helpful. Like Klarna can be very helpful as a business model. Like if
Agreed.
you like if you're buying something and you don't want to pay it, and there might be a fault with the product or whatever, or you want to pay it in 3 installments, and you really need something, whatever your situation is. Like it's a good uh, business to have. But you think. Like, if I was an employee, Michael, listening to my CEO say that, I'd be thinking, I need to get out of here fast. Like, fuck this
So
guy. Like,
right,
that's
but
how I feel personally.
me too, me too. But so here's what I feel like the issue comes into place, right?
Yeah.
Intelligence is not. So you're familiar with transfer learning in AI, right?
Right, yeah. Well, I'm familiar with
Okay,
it. I'm not
right.
that
So
knowledgeable.
basically, using one model's weights to deploy to another model, right? That's the simplified version. But intelligence in humanity does not work that way, right? Because you know how to raise money doesn't mean you know how to deploy AI into your stack. Like, I think there's this
I like that.
overall like, oh, I'm the CEO, I raised all this money, I know everything about everything all the time, I'm an expert, period. It doesn't work like that, right?
Yeah.
Great companies are always, and it's been this way forever, built on great people,
Mm.
period. Because I promise you, you look at the companies that fall through, it wasn't because of the people. It was because of shitty leadership.
Mm.
Theranos. I mean, come on, like the list goes on.
Yeah. How
SBF and
broke.
FTX, right?
Yeah.
Do you think those developers didn't know what they were doing? No, they actually built a great platform, right?
Yeah.
He was the one, So I don't know why there's this shifted focus of, because I'm successful in this one thing that I'm really, 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 really good at, then take my word for everything else. That's where I
Yeah.
think people get into trouble, right? And it goes back to what we were talking about previously. You and me both. We're not finance guys. I'm not the
Yeah.
one. I'm not the one to run a company's finance, right? I'm not that guy. I can make sure your shit's functional and your tech is going to be innovative and it's going to, work. I'm not a finance guy, so even if our CEO was to step aside today, oh, you're the CEO, we got to find somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Yes.
just going to be honest. Like, I'm not going to tank the company because my ego can't acknowledge that I'm a human being with certain knowledge gaps.
Yeah.
I'm not that fragile. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's yeah, like people have insecurities. They feel like they have to do all of that stuff, and like, or at least how I think about it. And I think, why would you want to spend time? Like, I understand, like, you need to have a basic grasp of understanding when you can and can't spend, and what your balance sheet needs to look
Right,
like, and whatever.
right. Right.
on a very basic level. But if you were to sit me and look at bank balances and discuss finances, like I'd think, what are we doing? Like the customers are the ones that are going to fill this balance sheet up. Like I need to go speak to them. Like you
Right.
take care of
You,
it and walk me through it and give me the distilled version, and I'm going to go do what I'm very good at. And I think,
absolutely. Yeah, you
um,
yes, you have me in one of those meetings. I hope you got a IV drip full of coffee going into me because I'm asleep.
exactly,
Right.
exactly. Well, I'm glad there's people that like those other aspects I don't enjoy, and similar for other businesses.
Yeah, me
But
too,
what?
man. And I just, to your point about people having insecurities, I think you're exactly right. I think, there's this whole thing, oh, no, dude, be responsible. Say, you know what? I don't know enough about that thing to speak on that thing. I'm not
Yeah,
going to speak to you about brain surgery.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I'm okay with my limitations, and I think everybody should be.
Yeah, and I think that's bringing back to the point earlier with conferences. I wish that's what they had, because I got asked to speak at a conference, and they asked me to speak about something on like the future direction of quantum computing. I was like, dude, I know fuck all about quantum computing. And even AI, like I tell people, I'm an enthusiast. I'm not a developer. Like I'm trying to learn it. I'm trying to understand it. That's why I speak to people like yourself, because I'm fully aware of what I don't know. But my vision is just to help people with what they don't know. Like I'm all for that. But if I was to walk
Right.
into a room and say how they need to structure their architecture and like where they should store their data, like it'd like be a very wild guess. Like those kind of things I would just not know. And I think there is that problem where we're looking at people that all of a sudden have become these experts in these areas for whatever reason, and I don't know. I don't understand it, and it's like listening. Yeah, I don't know. I could rant on that for hours, but I think it's a very bad problem. People listening to people that aren't proficient with not just AI, but how to implement it or how to build products, or like what you're building with Falcons or like anything. Like that's how bad decisions happen. It's like taking
Of
bad money
course.
advice from someone who's 100 grand in debt. It's like, why am I listening to you? Like
Right,
it's
right. So it just goes back to a statement my granddad told me a long time ago, and you may find this funny. He told me, "Don't eat stinky meat."
yeah, it's
Right.
true
And what he
because it's
means
awful.
is, what he means
Yeah,
is, if somebody's saying something that just smells bad, that just doesn't feel right, like don't move on. They're lying or something's off. Like trust your nose. Like just don't eat stinky meat.
yeah. Do you trust your gut for a lot of situations, Michael?
Have to.
Do you go? Yeah.
Have to. Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to like people and stuff, and I mean, obviously, I make mistakes and I trust some of the wrong people, and maybe I don't trust some of the people that I should have, things like that. But for the most part, it got me to where I am to this day, and I feel like that's one of the things that AI will not replace. Um, from a human perspective, is the intuition, that gut feeling. And so
Mm.
and there's a huge story about that. You can look it up about it was actually a Russian missile systems tech that prevented nuclear war.
Wow. Really? What? That's a cool
Yeah,
story. What's the
yeah,
background of
because
that?
apparently there was a fault in the detection systems, and their systems detected like
I
a
have
U.S.
heard this. It was a false positive, and they said like
Yes,
one.
yeah,
Yeah, I've heard this story. Yeah, it's a
yeah.
crazy story.
So he was like, "Nah, that just doesn't seem right." And he, kind of did it, and he's like, "Nah, we're not launching." And come to find out, yeah, it was a fault in their system. So would AI have that? No. See, AI doesn't have gut feeling, right? And
Yeah.
so, things like that. So I think there's so many things about AI that are great, but I think there's, once again, there's so many things about humans that make us great, and I think that gets so
Yeah.
underplayed.
Yeah. How we take things at like face value or whatever. It's Nassim Taleb. I think that's the book.
I
Like
love
he
it.
wrote
Anti-fragile. I love it.
Anti-Fragile.
Anti-fragile, Black
That's-
Swan, Skin in the Game.
Yeah.
I love all. Yes, he is. Yeah, he's different.
Yeah. He's a lot like Naval Ravikant, and he did the episode with I mean his book's great, and he did Joe Rogan, but he also did Modern Wisdom with Chris Williamson, who's like really growing on me. And his book, the one you just mentioned, Nassim Taleb's, not the Black Swan, the other one. What was the
Skin
other
in the
one you just
Game.
mentioned? No, the first one.
Anti-fragile.
Anti-Fragile. I read that earlier this year, and that just
That's
changed my. It was
awesome.
Yeah, it changed my. I'm stupid because I can't. It's daft that I can't remember the title of the book. But Anti-Fragile was. I remember reading that, Mark. I was like, whoa! I was like, this has changed my
Yeah,
view on the world.
yeah. So if you can find it, I mean, I'm sure you can. Check out the conference with him and Daniel Kahneman. That is
Okay.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna type it in
You
now
know
to
Daniel
just remember.
Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow?
I know the book. I know him, but I've never read the book. No.
Okay, yeah, yeah, that's really good too. I don't know, like I love reading. I love, you know, gathering knowledge from just, you know, people and places that you don't really think. Yuval Harari, he's got some good books,
Yeah.
from time to time.
How many? I read a lot as well. So how many books? Like, do you just read when you can, or is it like something you commit to, or like how do you structure it? Is
I
it something
try to
that you?
commit to like a book a week or something along those lines. I'm not really good at keeping up with it. Usually the
Yeah.
summertime when things kind of slow down, it's easier for me to do.
Mm.
So yeah, I've been reading a really strange book lately. It's really good though. So we put out a fear mongering detection model last year because, you know, last year was the biggest year of elections in global history. And I felt like there was a lot of divisive language and fear mongering, you know, being put out into the world. And so we developed a model that's, you know, openly available on Hugging Face Fear Mongering. That led me to this one book called the Guru Papers, and it just talks about, you know, how people use these, you know, linguistic tricks to, you know, kind of divide and split people and create cults and, you know, further rat people into their cults and stuff like that. So, you know, I try to look at just, you know, any kind of thing that kind of can give me a different perspective, because with AI becoming these thinking machines like they are, right? I always, you know, when we have these like thought processes or thought experiments, right? What if AI gets a psychosis? How will we know, right?
That's an
What if
interesting
this
idea.
model is experiencing some sort of whatever the computational equivalent to a trauma or something like that? How do we, you know, just, and it seems, you know, stupid now until it happens. Then you had just had the incident with the Claude trying to blackmail
Yeah,
the
I saw that.
researcher, right?
Crazy.
What
And
was
it's like
that?
trying
What was that
to
model
shut it down.
actually doing?
Yeah,
Self-preservation,
yeah,
right? So now we're starting to get into, okay, what are the, and strange, it sounds like science fiction, right? What are the potential psychological implications of that these models can have that can actually adversely impact the physical world, right?
yeah. That's a really interesting idea to think about. Like, what do you think? This is something I wanted to ask you earlier, and something I wanted to ask like when having you on was like with your work with Falcons AI, and on that topic especially, like that kind of way of thinking with, and I'm really just curious. Like, I'm not. I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. Like the way I was going to ask about like the whole data energy scene at the moment because that seems like something people are starting to, and I don't know if it's like a, I don't know much about it. Like I'm just seeing it from a top level, and obviously you're running models, and I'd assume it takes up a lot of data and patterns, and you build big libraries. Um, but also to your point there, like with what happened with perplexity and what happens with systems, like conscious, not conscious thinking, but making threats to like self-preservation. There's something there that pulls those two conversations together, and I don't know like what your whole view is on it, especially around how we're making more and more data and like Sam Altman's. I was just watching the YouTube video. I haven't started yet, but I'm going to watch it tonight. On there's like a 40-minute video about him building the next factory in Texas, and I don't know like
Yeah.
what do you think about it with where the way models are going, but also like the data capacity behind it because you know firsthand with people using your models. Like what how do you look at that kind of situation?
So there's a study came out about a year or two ago. I did a LinkedIn post about it, and it's called model autophagy disorder, right? And so it's the degradation of models over time by continuously training them on synthetic data, right?
Right.
And with us running out of data, you know, they're so the equivalent analogy they used was it's like uh, feeding cows with dead cows with mad cow disease back to the cows and then processing them for human consumption, right? It's going to degrade considerably. And so this is what I think the issue is. I don't think we're at a loss for data. What I think people should be aware of is the whole new push for what's that little thing they're coming out with? They call it the brooch or something. OpenAI and Johnny Ive have that little.
Oh, they've that's recent. They just announced it. Like it's going to be some sort of laptop accessory or something, from what I understand. I was watching a CNBC.
No, you're supposed to walk around with it on your shirt, and it's supposed to just completely be on, recording video and audio and conversations all the time.
You can do it like it's supposed to be on a necklace. Like, these are the ideas. I saw one, like, apparently it was a leak whatever on X,
right,
and it was showing like concept designs, and it kind of, I mean, if it's anything like the Humane AI BIM,
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I can't see it taken off, but maybe they've got
exactly. So there's still data out there, and that's one way to gather real world, quantifiable, tangible, non-signal boosted stupidity or whatever data.
Right.
That's actually more close to a realistic world model that Jan LeCun talks about than Reddit posts and all of that stuff, right? But then you get into, can I turn it off? I mean, you say I can turn it off, but can I really turn it off? And where are we housing all of this data? What about GDPR? What about all these compliance? Can I delete the data that you have? Right? Things like that. Then you start getting into data capacity, which, once again, we're competing with an entity for land, for water, and for power now. Who's going to get the nod? Tom and his community, or Microsoft's new data center that's moving in next door? Who do you think is going to get the nod?
I'll probably go.
You see what I'm saying? Right. And so we have those dilemmas that should have been at the fore, but they're not. And I'm in no way, shape, form, or fashion am I talking about restricting innovation. I'm talking about, hey, you got a lot of smart people with some smart new tech. Come up with something better than a mega factory. Are you serious right now? You can't think, with all that brain power and all those billions of dollars and the latest and the greatest, and let's be honest, they haven't even released their best model, right? They keep that under wraps for governments and things like that. That's not even a secret. Yeah. You have all of that, and your go-to is a mega factory?
Yeah.
See, that's disappointing to me, right? You're not leveraging the cognitive power that you have at your fingertips to come up with something better than a mega factory.
Yeah.
Right?
It does make you think, like,
disappointing.
Yeah, it is disappointing, and it makes me think, I don't know if it sounds like you got a similar view. Like, someone was saying to me about Apple, and I really rated Mark Zuckerberg speaking about it, because he was basically saying how, and I hold a very similar view, that Apple have just been disappointing recently. Like, they haven't released anything that's like wow or amazing. And I mean, the Apple Intelligence they had to draw back on, and you look at the comparison against Samsung, and someone was like, yeah, but could you create it? I was like, no, but I also don't have a fucking $1 trillion in the bank. And
see, there we go, right? There we go. So
they do.
So I'm 100% with you. I'm 100%, and I may make people, I don't know who, is a Mac fan, or, Apple or Tim Cook or whoever, but I'll be honest with you. Innovation at Apple died when Steve Jobs did.
Yeah, massively.
Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Apple has done nothing but iterate ever since Steve Jobs left. They haven't innovated shit. They've iterated. And that goes back to path dependence, right? What has OpenAI innovated after ChatGPT? Nothing. Just iterations. Just iteration. So I think the world is starving for actual innovation. Not iteration. Not version 5 of this same old shit that, whatever. Oh, the screen is, a couple millimeters larger now. So whatever. Or the camera's, 10% better or something like that, right?
Yeah.
It's all like, and to your point, they can say that about Falcons AI or whatever, but to your point, we're not working with $1 trillion. We're not working with $100 billion in cash.
Yeah.
Right? So it's disappointing, to be completely honest. It's disappointing. I think Sundar Pichai was late to the game. Google developed transformers, and OpenAI jumped out front. Google should have been out in front with that.
Yeah.
So I feel like once again, that goes back to leadership, right? I feel like there hasn't really been innovative leaders in the tech space. Um, for some time. I mean, you have stars, right? You have some standouts from time to time, but nobody that's really, you know, Microsoft jumped out, Bill Gates. Oh my God, Windows is great and whatever. And then, oh, here's Steve Jobs. And then Apple, no, it's so great. And then, you have, these people developing these other frameworks and Linus Torvalds and Linux and, all this other stuff. And I know I'm showing my age going back that far. But, you have the VMware team and, just certain people doing the Ubuntu team. And then you have people doing, stellar things. When have we seen that though lately? Not from Apple.
Yeah.
Not from Apple has not. Apple has only, ever since Steve Jobs, Apple has only iterated. They have not innovated. And it's so sad that with all that money, your go-to move was to say, yeah, we're going to collab with OpenAI.
Yeah,
that was your go-to?
Yeah. It's a real shame, man, because you see, like, I don't know, I don't even think they made that move with the Vision Pro, and even that was terrible. Like, it's not selling. Like, no one wants it. Right. And I think now they're copying Meta and Ray-Ban by saying we're going to put it into glasses. And I just think, like, I don't even know. Like, I've got a pair of Meta Ray-Bans, and I kind of like it because I associate like eye protection with Ray-Bans. Like, they've dominated that market for ages.
Obviously,
and
yes.
It's like, and you just think, like, it's obviously a big if, but if Steve was still running that company, would the car have ever failed? Would all these things that just didn't take off? Like, I wonder what we'd have. Like, what product we'd now have.
Exactly. So I always have this running joke, right? I feel like those of us in the tech space that are my age and have been in, around my length of time, we have failed our children. Because in 2000, if you would have asked us, what would 2025 look like? Oh, it would be like the Jetsons, right? Flying cars and all this cool stuff, and everybody's doing all this great stuff. Not even close. Not even close. And so I give, people like Jobs and the guys from BlackBerry and, all the people that pushed the state of technology, literally pushed it forward. I give them so much credit because now everybody's just trying to Me Too it. They're either trying to Me Too it or they're trying to buy out their competition. That's it. Nobody's saying, we'll tackle that.
Yeah. I wonder why it is, man. Like, why people won't take those risks and build, like, I really, like, at least the Humane AI pin took, that's a good point, but at least Humane AI pin took a gamble and it didn't work.
I know. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Even them, what was the little box? What was that little box? That little red box.
There was that rabbit one as well.
Yeah. Even that. At least they tried. I'm a huge fan of the Nothing phone, right? It's not high end, super high end leading, but he tried to do something different. I want to put high end capabilities, high end design in a lower tier. So, like, okay, I like that, right? But it's not. So I have a question for you actually, and I like doing this. So along the lines of the problem with innovation that we've just been going over, what would Tom do with a 1,000 IQ? Like, you're literally a force of nature at that point.
Yeah, I really like something to. If I've got that much intelligence, my head's thinking something towards space. Because I know a lot of innovation comes from space. Like, look how what's come out of like SpaceX and those places. I'm not sure. I really don't. That's a hard question. It's a good question.
Right.
What would you do? That kind of, like, it's like when I was at one of these Tony Robbins seminars and he's like, "What would you do with £10 million?" And he actually asks them, and they don't know. It's just like, "Why are you asking for £10 million? I don't know what you're going to do with it." And it's kind of it's taken my mind.
Right, but see, money focuses more on the material. That's why I go with intelligence, right? Because
that's interesting, Michael. Because I didn't even jump to materialistic. I jumped to like
exactly
vision of helping humanity and stuff. Like, you instantly jump to that. That's a great question.
Absolutely. And so the reason I asked that is because that's how we're framing this super AGI, right? This advanced, next level, it's going to be at that level. So what would we do?
Yeah. What would you, asking a similar question, what would you build? What do you think would be valuable in the marketplace today? What would you build if you could? Would it be like, and it's got to be some sort of hardware. What do you think
Easy
would
question.
be,
I would solve
pardon?
reversible computing.
Reversible computing? What's that? Like what do you mean? How do you do
Right.
that?
So reversible computing is just basically being able to undo a calculation and put the energy used in that computation back into the battery or back onto the grid.
Uh,
Right. And why would I do that? Because look at all the junk data that's out there. Look at all the things that, people have generated this image and deleted it and this, that, and the other. What if you had a reversible computing algorithm running on your device that anytime you put something in the trash can, it never got created. It just undid the calculation to flip those bits and then put that back into your battery. Think about the number of how many times you've, typed out a message in backspace because it was misspelled or whatever. All of those little calculations cost energy.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
reversible computing to actually put power back onto the device, which then back onto the grid, which solves a lot of the trash problems that we have with wasted consumption.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
ask a different
Reversible
perspective.
computing.
How
You
much
want to
is
get scary? What?
Yeah.
No,
No,
what
go
did
on,
you say?
tell me. Yeah. No,
No,
go
I
on.
said you want
On.
to get scary. We're looking at. Have you've heard of mirror life, right?
Have I? No, I don't think I have. Mirror life.
Okay, look this term up. So basically, the way proteins in our DNA and all that is kind of configured naturally is kind of right-handed, right? So mirror life is making the exact same version left-handed. But the problem with that is that's bacteria and stuff that's unknown to nature, so it has no natural enemies. So it's a horror story, right, from a biological sequence, right?
Yeah, I can see it now.
But so we start looking at, and that's what it's called is chirality, right? Something in the mirror opposite is a chiral, right? It's chiral effect. So looking at ways to apply that type of thought to algorithms, to invert them or flip them around to get the opposite effect for reversible computation, right? Things like that. That's kind of things that we kick around in the R&D side of things too.
I like. That's yeah, I'm just reading about it now. So how do you like you mentioned one of these other ways of thinking earlier, and I looked it up. But is this like something you look at quite regularly in your R&D sessions when you're building like the next product, or is this how you think in Falcons and what you kind of?
Absolutely. Everything we do is kind of, we look at like a combinatorial approach to things, right? Because that's the world we live on is built on combinations of previous tech,
Yeah.
right? So why not continue to build on what's got us to this point, right? So combining, different theories and concepts and, just things like that. Just like, so another thing, that we just started kicking around like 3 weeks ago was, so do you remember back when Meta had to turn their chatbots off because they had created a language that the researchers couldn't understand?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So we started looking at, is there a way for us to develop a model that can identify emergent language patterns in agent communications to detect when a problem might arise?
Yeah.
Right. So what if all of these agents that everybody's deploying start figuring out, you know what, we can put this out and our human auditors are going to say, oh, well, that's normal. Oh, that's normal. But here's what we'll really be saying, not subliminally, it kind of gets the blur
Yeah.
between digital and physical and psychological kind of get a little crazy, but just looking at what are the probabilities and impact of these agents developing emergent language patterns to actually do things other than what was instructed.
Mm.
Right?
Mm.
So that's come from human psychology, right? Humans do it all the time, subliminal speaking and blah, 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 and all that type of stuff, right? So we're talking about intelligence, so let's look at it that way. What,
Yes.
and it's already happened. It's not even it's not conjecture. It's, or hyperbole. It's that literally happened. So
Yeah.
who's planning for that? Somebody needs to say, hey, you know what? Let's let AI worry about that, right? We don't have to regulate around it because if they're doing it, we can't even catch it. It's happening too fast and it's too cryptic.
Mm.
Right. So
Yeah.
yeah, we do like a lot of those like thought experiments, combinatorial approaches to different things to solve, either current or what we may perceive to be, potential, problems with these smarter and smarter systems.
Yeah. Do you think there's it's a good way of thinking, like to like build the way you're explaining, like how to think of these critical problems that people are facing? So I remember when I first met you, and I was thinking like and I mean, there's a lot of things overlooked, but just how like that whole world, that whole area that you're really tackling through Falcon's AI and what you're doing, did it? You were saying it started with like seeing what your kids were doing and what they were doing, and that created like a problem. How how did you see this whole problem, like what you're solving? Like not just that. I don't know if I'm asking it very well, but like to see that problem, and then you just mentioned that use case earlier in like healthcare and things, and think, okay, we can build a model around this. And I mean, not something the NSFW stuff is, it's everything that people see at work, and it's a big problem to tackle. And I'm just thinking, like, not how did he come up with the idea, but how did he see like, okay, get this in motion? I kind of asked it earlier, but yeah, what do you think about when you're building and in these sessions, and like what problem to solve next, or how your problem's helping people and how it's helping areas and protecting people?
I mean, so it comes from conversations just like this. So this is why I love, conversations with people that actually think and, have varied perspectives and different perspectives because, one of the questions that we got asked originally
Mm,
was, well, how does it classify homosexuality?
you're right.
It doesn't. Well, then it's not, and the gripe was, well, then it's not blah, 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 blah. Dude, it's
Yes.
not culturally based. It's physically based, right? Different cultures, different things. It's not our business. Our business is to identify X, or, what we try to do is identify X problem and boil it down to the simplest, what is it called? Atomization, right? Atomizing a problem, getting it down to the smallest possible thing.
More detail. Yeah.
Solve for that and then work your way back up.
Yeah. It's like
So just like random things is how I solve problems. Like I may watch a TV show and they make a statement and I'm like,
yeah.
hmm, So I'll give you a prime example. So have you ever seen the TV show Fringe?
No, I've not. No, I've not seen it.
Okay, so it's just about some like space age fringe technologies and fringe events and all of this. Well, there's one
Yeah.
episode and it's called the Milo Stansfield episode, right? And the reason
Right.
I remember it is because at the very end, the guy he had taken like a nootropic, like an injection, and it was supposed to because he was learning impaired or whatever. Well, he got so smart that he couldn't even communicate anymore, and so they were describing it at the very end like, hey, he can't even speak to humans anymore because he's thinking his brain is running at, this certain level of pattern recognition and analysis and that and the other. So that's kind of what triggered me into thinking, okay, well, if these advanced AI start getting, out to those levels and they
Yeah.
start speaking in different ways to each other because they could talk to each other because they're super intelligent, what are we going to be able to do to kind of still be able to communicate and interact with them as our own, with our own agency without
Yeah.
them just setting up the dominoes for us to knock over as we go, right? So just things like that. Like I'm very curious. I like certain words, and I know this sounds kind of stupid, but I just like to hear like new words, nuanced words in certain ways that maybe I've never heard of, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like,
That's a good way.
I'm super curious. I'm like, I wonder what that is. Okay, I wonder
Yeah.
how that would be applied to AI. And then back to my question, I think about this all the time. You know, 1,000 IQ. What would this be like with 1,000 IQ? And so I just kind of, and that's just kind of how, I come up with certain concepts and certain fears and certain
Yeah.
reasons to be, super optimistic because I am. I can see all the bad, not all the bad, obviously, but I can see a lot of horrible, outcomes. But at the same time, there's the mirror, right? There's
Yeah.
all kinds of great, really great, spectacular, good things, right? Even if you were to solve, um, something from a cellular level that, slows the progression of cancer. Okay, well, maybe that may get one person on the planet
Mm,
who I'll never know,
mm.
one more day with that one person that they love.
That's a beautiful way of looking at it.
How do you put a monetary value on that?
Yeah. That's
Because I promise you right now, with all of his money on the planet, if Elon Musk had one more day to live, I promise you he would give you every penny.
yeah. Give it
Right?
all for
So
free.
there are certain
Yeah.
things that, I look at like, no, people are good. People,
Yeah.
for the most part, people are good. Now, people are complex. There's bad things that, great people do and great things that bad people do. And you just gotta, move forward and hope that the majority is still good. And, you get to meet people like you and have great conversations like this. And that makes the world better.
Yeah. You remind me of like you're thinking like Bradley Cooper in Limitless or something, like where you can just see everything with that 1,000 IQ, like what situation's
That'd be
coming and
awesome,
how.
right? That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, if anybody out there, I just want to put this out to your audience. If anybody out there is working on NZT, yeah, I'll volunteer.
Yeah, I'll volunteer with you.
I think,
I'll be up for that straight away.
right,
I'd
right.
fly over to you and we'd go experiment with it, Michael. I'd be like, yeah, let's take it. Let's see what happens.
Me too. I would. 1,000 IQ? Yeah, I would do it. You wouldn't need
Yeah.
money. You wouldn't need money because any resource you need, you could just figure out a way to get that resource at that time when you needed it, and it would all be utility, I feel like.
Yeah, maybe that's what we need. Maybe people need to become smarter, and I think there's like a big problem. This is more like
I do too. Yes. Yes.
yeah, like
Yes.
people don't
100%.
like my view is like someone was talking about universal income. I really would panic if that came into effect because I reckon suicide rates would go up. I reckon everything.
That's very dangerous. That's very dangerous.
Yeah.
I understand the genuineness of wanting to do that to help people, but
Yeah. Dangerous. Yeah. Well, you have no you have no fulfillment, no passion, Michael. Like no wanting. It's just like, oh, everything's supplied, and if you're not like, there's a lot of coincidences that people who retire die very soon after they retire because it's like you've got no purpose or no passion. And
one
it's
word,
like,
yep, purpose, right? So
yeah,
and so so along those lines with the fear mongering thing, what I saw, the fear mongering model that we deployed, what I saw going on was when you start putting out like a lot of fear and a lot of division, the worst thing that happens within a community, even beyond the division, is the loss of hope, right? Purpose, right?
yeah,
Oh God, everything's hopeless. Why should I do anything? That's the worst thing that can happen to civilization. And so, to your point, I think that is something that will have to get accounted for, if they do, if whoever decides that universal basic income is because, yeah, you're stealing purpose and hope from a lot of people. Okay. Yeah, they're surviving, but,
are they actually doing anything worthwhile? It's a big
well, there's a
question.
difference between living and surviving.
Yeah, yeah, there is a very big
Like
difference.
seriously, right?
Yeah,
Like you don't have joy every day if you're living, but you have your joyous moments. You have your sad moments. You have your ups. You have your downs. You have your okay moments. When you're just surviving,
yeah.
dude, people in jail and that's how I see it. Like people in confinement, they're surviving. Is that really living?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I
Well,
agree with you.
I have a big thing around that with business and things like sometimes people say like athletes and business people, and they're like, "How did you get so good?" And they're just like, "It's so easy. Everyone's so lazy. It's like it's such an easy time to be successful because no one is really." And I think that's really true in some aspects. And people.
Well,
I
I
don't know.
do. I definitely agree with you, but I think it's novelty, right?
Mm.
Because you're not going to beat somebody that's been doing that for that long of time, right? So I don't know. Me and you aren't about to start the next e-commerce platform and compete with Amazon, right? But we could get in our own space and excel at that thing in that space and still and possibly get up to, the revenue or adoption that, an Amazon marketplace has. Those are options. That's available. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my gripe, going back to the conversation about, all these middlemen and panelists and people that don't really know. Is you specialize in something that's novel, something that matters to you. That way you're going to be passionate about it. You're going to put the time in. You'll go through those sleepless nights and those ups and downs and, things like that. That is going to make you better, and it will give you that driving purpose.
Yeah. It's a great point, and I've mentioned this a few times where you might feel the same way. You're naturally attracted to people. Like when I was speaking to you around what Falcons AI is doing, and when I spoke to various other people about what they're building, you're attracted to people that you can just tell have a genuine interest and passion, and like you want to buy from them, and you want to speak to them, and you want to work with them, you want to hang out with them, you want to go to the pub with them, or you just want to be around them because you can tell, like, you might not like all their traits or like their views on everything, but you can't. They're like undeniably passionate about what they love, and it's like you just. I'm drawn to people like that. It's like it's who I want to buy off.
Me too. And that's why I told you, like, conversation, right? I love conversation. I love hearing people that have other thoughts and can make me expand my awareness. Like, I'm not afraid to say I don't know something. And I think that's a huge problem. Everybody tries to be like the perfectionist, and I don't care. If there's something that, I can learn from Tom, dude, I will sit here and talk to you for 3, 4, 5 hours because I like that. I like new things and knowledge and perspective. But I think that's why I'm like drawn more towards like true innovation, right? I like to see innovation, not iteration. And so, yeah, you could tell there's a genuine passion and an energy. And that's why I told you when we got off the other call, like, dude, we need to have a conversation.
Yeah, many more as well, man. Many more. Hopefully, the next one
I
will be
look forward to it, bud. Yeah.
So, wrapping up, where can people find you? What's next for Falcons AI, and what are you looking at next? Yeah,
Absolutely. So, we've opened our funding, right? So we're going on our initial funding, and we've collaborated with Intel. So we've just deployed, or we're getting ready to deploy a small, lightweight, low power, energy efficient architecture with Intel, or partnership with Intel. Yeah, we're working with Ubuntu to have our model integrated into the next versions of Ubuntu. Hopefully that'll come to fruition. And yeah, Falcons AI. You can find us on Hugging Face. You can find us on YouTube. Falcons AI, Falcons.ai. We are the official Falcons AI.
Nice. I love it. And what you're building is it's definitely something that took a lot of interest to me, how you're building it and what you've got next, and just super exciting area, man. So it's yeah, credit to you and the team and what you and Bobby are doing and the rest of the team. It's awesome. And I'm looking forward to seeing what's next with it. A lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you again for everything. I appreciate you having me on, right? Thank God for letting this happen.
Of course,
brother.
man. I'm looking forward to the next conversations. I'm going to see you in person at some point, and we'll
please do catch up wherever you are in the world. Let me know here in the next couple months, and I will literally fly to meet you, and we can chop it up.
I love it, man.
Seriously, I'm serious. Like I think we could, extend these conversations.
I can talk to you for hours, and I will over the next few sessions. And yeah, again, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Sounds good. Thank you, brother. Take care.